Hey guys, Josh here from Solopreneur Grind, back for another book review. And this time I'm going to talk about the 3 key takeaways I took from reading one of Steve Jobs' biographies. There are apparently many, but I read the one by Walter Isaacson. And in case you can't tell, this thing is pretty huge. If you know a little bit about Apple or you know a little bit about Steve, you want to know more, you want to know more detail, or if you don't even like Steve or Apple, but really want a bunch of lessons in business or tech companies or innovation, I highly recommend it. It's a page turner for sure, especially as far as biographies go. So the first lesson is to think and live outside the box. And what I mean by this is, sure, we see Apple and they're arguably one of the most innovative companies in the world, and the products that Steve built changed industries, right? Whether it be the MacBook, the iPod, the iPad, iTunes, the list goes on, right? But Steve lived outside of the box as well, right? It was kind of like the combination of the way he thought, the way he lived. He kind of just embodied innovation and creativity. And they go into some detail in the book on how he wouldn't shower for days. He went on full fruit diets. He didn't furnish his mansion, right? Like, he just had a couch sitting in the living room and a mattress in his mansion for way too long. Now, I'm not saying go live like Steve did or be weird, but Steve really thought outside the box and kind of lived the way that he thought was right and the way that worked for him and that he wanted to live. But Steve really embodied his values, right? One of the big ones being innovation and creativity. So he didn't just do that when he walked into the office, he lived it. And that was a pretty interesting thing to learn about him. So lesson number 2 is that customers don't always know what they want. And this is more business focused. But the reality is, a lot of companies out there, and this will depend on your type of business in your industry, but market research and focus groups and all that stuff is super popular. And I think for the right businesses and the right industries, it makes sense. But for what Steve was doing, it didn't make any sense, right? You couldn't have a focus group where someone would tell you, I want an iPod, right? Because it didn't exist yet. And so in a lot of these high-tech, innovative type industries, it may not be helpful to actually try and figure out what customers want. And Steve didn't, right? He didn't do any like market or industry or consumer research at all. He just went in and designed what he thought were amazing, new, innovative products and kept them simplistic and stylistic and everything like that. Research is important, depending on what you're doing, is I guess one big takeaway. If you're trying to reinvent the wheel, then you might not want to spend a lot of time and money on market research. And the obvious example of that is the big Coke fiasco. I think it was in the 70s or 80s where they did focus groups because they wanted to launch a new formula for Coke. And all the focus group results pointed to this new formula, and then they launched it and it completely flopped and like almost bankrupted the company. Yes, you want to know your customer, you want to know a lot about them, but sometimes they don't always know exactly what they want. And that was a really insightful takeaway to take from that. The third takeaway is follow your passion. It kind of links to the first takeaway, and I almost didn't want to list this as a takeaway because it's become so common. You know, follow your passion has almost taken a hit in recent years because so many people say it, but what does it actually mean? If you read this book and if you learn more about Steve, you're going to see probably one of the most honest examples of someone just ruthlessly following their passion and almost to a fault, not listening to other people, right? Being super stubborn, being rude, treating people poorly, letting your health slide. That's how badly and passionately Steve wanted Apple to succeed and grow and be successful. So the reason I say follow your passion is not because I want to fall into the generic like rah-rah follow your passion that has become a lot more popular in recent years. It's because Steve embodied that and is an example of what can happen if you do it that passionately, that ruthlessly for that long of a period of time. Highly recommend you actually read the book. I think these are pretty important key takeaways. So that's it. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. Highly recommend it. Those are the 3 key lessons. If you liked the video, please make sure to like it. Hit the like button somewhere below. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll see more of these videos as well. And I hope to see you soon.